GameyDaddy.
Hello everyone, this is Emmett with GameyDaddy and I'm here with another video from Tom Clancy's The Division. Now, there are many misconceptions about PvE players, and we're not just talking about casual players. I mean, those who actually enjoy the basic PvE game mechanics and don't play much of the PvP aspect. Because clearly, it lacks balance and it can't be as balanced as most other PvP shooters because of the way gear, skill, and weapon stats differ. Now, unless this can be normalized, the so-called skill gap will still remain a huge gap. Now, some players even go as far as blaming the majority of the changes in this game on PvE players, when in fact, the trend that we've seen with all the patches so far are the majority of the changes made to gear, skills, and weapons have stemmed from PvP. If you think otherwise, open your game and read all the patch notes from 1.1 through 1.5, and the evidence speaks for itself. Now, this is not an us versus them video. This is just a video I'm making because honestly, I'm sick to my stomach of people who enjoy PvP having this somewhat superiority complex like they're all that. It even goes to the point where some individuals think that PvE players who don't like the Dark Zone are complaining that PvP players are way too good. I mean, come on. So, well, here are 4 of my misconceptions that I've actually pulled out from a number of comments that I've read, a number of videos that I've watched, you know, that some PvP players just maybe consciously or unconsciously hold about most PvE players in this game. Now, hear me out. There are players who participate in PvE and PvP and they enjoy both of it. This is not the disdain that they hold, but it seems like there's some kind of disdain against players who have voiced their opinion against some of the issues that they see in the Dark Zone. In this video, I'm going to argue against these misconceptions, so stay tuned. Now, the first one is that PvE players are noobs. I enjoy reading comments on many forums, and it helps me understand people and their opinions, and usually you can pick out trends and patterns from them. One very huge trend is that most PvE players are noobs because they don't play PvP or because they complain about the issues in PvP. But here is the truth. Most PvE players do not want to participate in PvP, and that doesn't make them inferior. Don't get me wrong, I like watching PvP, even though I think it's funny. You know, you watch all these funny videos from some really good creators, and I like watching my favorite PvP players like Upper Echelon Gaming, Chris and his team, and Wids. But whenever I think of PvP personally, like I want to go into Dark Zone PvP, I just cringe because the systems put in place like griefing, unbalanced gear buffs, talents, and, you know, little to no objective in PvP kind of don't, you know, they're not appealing to me. And the premise of PvP was that you could steal loot, and that used to be the case. Now, if you got ganked in the DZ, it was because of loot, and this is, you know, and this was the case. But now this isn't the case anymore. Most of the hardcore PvP folks get their gear the same way PvE players get gear as well, from PvE and NPCs. How many hardcore PvP players take time to solo the most difficult content in this game? How many hardcore PvP players spend more time than hardcore PvE players in this game min-maxing their gear? If you want the numbers, I can show you. But, you know, do this. Go on your friends list, you know, check the division stats of those who only play PvP and those who really love PvE, and you see that this doesn't reduce their skill level. It's just that most PvE players don't just enjoy PvP in what we call a cover-based shooter, and the PvP here is exactly the opposite. And so you can see why people are turned off from the idea of PvP. Now, the second misconception is that PvP players, or PvE players, sorry, are whiny little word that rhymes with witches. Now, really, I mean, come on. You know, to that misconception, I'm just gonna ask one question. How many nerfs have come to the PvE aspect, have come from the PvE aspect of this game? Now, let me tell you some nerfs that mostly have come from the PvP side. Okay, here are my favorite few. Sentry's Call nerf number 1. The 4-piece bonus was moved from all weapons to semi-automatic weapons. And then it received a Sentry Striker nerf, which was number 2, which they moved the 4-piece bonuses of Sentry and Striker to the 5-piece bonus. And this was because, and the developer said that in the state of the game, they said because people were wearing the 3-2-1 combo and it was clearly overpowered. PvE players didn't complain. We love being overpowered against NPCs. The third one is the Sentry's nerf and a final obliteration of a beautiful PvE set in patch 1.4 and 5. Now, PvE players loved Sentry's Call because it was fun to use. You could solo content with it. You could also play a support role with it, and it was so amazing until, you know, it broke PvP. Another nerf is the first aid heal nerf, which was a result of PvP. You know, since manhunt groups would just run through heals and never die. Also, you know, in PvP in the converse, we enjoyed it in Falcon Lost because we just popped that bad boy on the ground in wave 4 and wave 8. You know. The good old days of, you know, Falcon Lost, where PvP players like Marco himself farmed over 70 times to get his 700k toughness tactician build. So what's the big deal about PvE being like some kind of back of the woods kind of thing? Another nerf was tactical advance. This skill has been nerfed from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. The final one is SMG nerfs. They were nerfed, they were buffed, they were nerfed, and they're still going to be buffed again. And all these changes mostly because of PvP. I can go on, but I don't want to bore anybody because in all fairness, patch 1.3 was broken and it was understandable that most things needed to change and balancing had to be put in perspective, you know, but some of these nerfs have been changed because PvP players have found out that they are game breaking. If you disagree, I'll name names easily because, you know, I've been keeping track of this game and its community for a while now. A third misconception is that PvE players don't want to invest time in this game and want everything handed to them on a platter. This is just pure self-centered thinking. When massive balanced loot drops in patch 1.4, yes, it did so with casual players in mind. And let's not try to confuse casual players with bad players. It's just a matter of time. I think it's a compliment to Massive that casual players take their time out of life's tugging responsibilities to play this game when there are other shooters out there. This is a solid game, but what is a solid game without a good player base? It's a failure. Also, most PvE players can also min-max their builds and do it way better than PvP players because we farm the heck out of this game. When others are dying and chasing manhunts all over Manhattan, we are extracting in peace, quiet, and serenity, enjoying the beautiful skies and killing any NPC that interrupts us. Yes, we the PvE players. Now, the fourth misconception I'd like to address is this. PvP is for the dark zone. Oh, I just want to pull out my hair, and I don't even have hair even. Actually, let's be technical about this. The dark zone is a PvP VE environment or a PvE VP, however you want to put it. So that thinking is objectively flawed. In fact, when I made my video what a PVE DZ could look like, it was a passive way of calling out the inconsistencies and flaws of the dark zone. I didn't want to bash the hard work of the developers. I just wanted to propose a solution and an option for PVE players who would enjoy a cover-based tactical experience inside the dark zone. So far, most PvP players just castigate other PvE players and don't show any concern like PvE players are not a part of the community. Instead, these misconceptions keep playing themselves out in different forms. If only hardcore PvP players were left in this game, it'll die. And you spend hours trying to matchmake for Lexington to get that Laraise Barrett chess piece or that showstopper with its 0.1% chance of dropping. Man, how miserable life would be without a hardcore PvE player base who solo the hardest content and encourage developers to make much more intelligent NPCs. Go meet the guy named Mate or the guy named Noyo. These two guys just single-handedly obliterated Falcon Lost in the time when it was very, very difficult to do in patch 1.3. Mate went for Clear Sky, and Noyo finished Dragon's Nest. He needed someone to push the buttons and all that good stuff. You know, and I was speaking with him the other day, like I sent him a message and a few questions, and he really enjoys the PvE part of this game. And he has one of the fastest times I've seen for a solo run for survival, about 27 minutes. Come on, with all 6 caches. Now, tell me that that's a noob, or tell me that that's someone who doesn't want to invest time in playing this game. You know, the truth is, some of us just enjoy the cover-based mechanics of this game. It's fluid, it makes you think, it develops decision-making skills, and you're required to make tactical decisions, which is worthy of a well-trained fighting agent against the madness of lawlessness. Please, don't strafe around me with a clearly broken movement system and then activate adept, vicious, and competent on your sawed-off shotgun so that you can proc 9 Alpha Breed talents and then call PvE players noobs. I mean, this is not everybody does this, obviously, but you go on YouTube and this is pretty much what people are doing. Activating 9 talents in Alpha Bridge, strafing left and right because the servers can't keep up. This is not what PvP could look like. It could be better, where people actually make tactical decisions. I mean, even some people even in this clearly broken system, some people make the best out of it, and they make the best PvP content that you can find out there. Now, that mindset that PvE players don't want to learn this game or spend time to get good and practice the broken mechanics can be allowed to go unchallenged. The PvE aspect of this game is one of the best you can find anywhere. And seeing, those who invest more time in PvE as inferior, noob, or whiny players is a flawed perception. Now, no one wants to turn a DZ into a cupcake fest. Instead, we just want to make this game better. And even those who are the so-called bad players will eventually become better players if they keep playing. What use is it if they drop the game if it's unplayable? So that's my argument. You can make whatever you want of this video. Comment, add to the conversation, and just know this is not to start a fight or some kind of war. No, I just wanted to challenge the conception that's out there that PvE players are somehow inferior to PvP players. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this kind of content, subscribe. Once again, thanks for your time. Peace.